Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be going over the commandments and where they work, because some people may not understand where the commandments do work and where the commandments do not work. For example, some work in PvE, some don't, some work in PvE and work against you, some work with you, and I thought I'd make a video covering all of them, because once again, it does say, but I do understand that some people probably don't read the commandments because they just assume that they don't work here or they work there, but I thought I'd go over it in a video. First one, we'll go with Glocks. So Glocks is commandment once again only works in PvP because it does say in PvP, so it's pretty good. Mainly because not only does it affect you and your enemies, so you can also screw over yourself and the enemy. It doesn't work in PvE. It means places like Hero Arena. Oh, it does actually work in Hero Arena as well, which is also super handy, especially if you're going second. Glocks can be really handy. Not only do you get 40% defense related stats for having 4 allies, but you end up getting, you know, you have the ability to lower, I don't know, Tier or Sab or someone who may possibly play 2 skills immediately. I mean, it's a 30% attack related stats, which is huge for any character, losing 30% attack related stats. Of course, as it is a red debuff, it can be removed. It can be screwed over by debuff immunity. And once again, characters like Escanor, Maef, a goddess team with Mael, completely immune to stat lower. So it kind of is useless on that, but generally PvE wise, especially for like Rat, command doesn't mean anything, so the character itself does exceed quite well. And Glocks definitely has, this LR Glocks has quite a heavily, it's a really heavy PvP kit. PvP relic, PvP commandment, you know, it's got like attack seal and stuff. It's a very PvP sort of kit. On to our next commandment, which will be Zell. So this Zell's commandment, I think it works everywhere, if I remember correctly. It works everywhere but Deathmatch. Yeah, which is like demons, which realistically, you're not gonna need it. Zell's commandment is insane though. Depletes 1 orb from the ultimate move gauge and removes all debuffs when using a skill. That is for all your allies, that is also for the enemies as well. But because it works everywhere, including PvE, let's just say Rat, you get like disabled by some sort of effect, or in Demonic Beast, you get disabled by some sort of effect. You move a skill with, let's just say Zell's frozen or something. You move a skill with Zell, you lose an ult gauge, but you're completely, all your debuffs are stripped off you, every single one of them. So you could have like 20 debuffs off you of like the food poisoning, move 1 skill, boom, all gone, and you're back to being healthy again. Because it does work in PvE and PvP, in PvP it can actually catch people off, especially if people run it as a link on Demon King Melee. That's what I used to do to counter Arthur, because LR Zell, he's not got the best CC. At the moment, he's not running his gear set. Someone else is actually running his gear set. But yeah, generally, he's a very good character, and I would even say that he's very good for demonic beasts like Rat, especially because of his relic as well, which increases his basic stats, or your allies' basic stats, by 30%, where, you know, an ult gauge is removed. I think his commandment also counts as well, but it only counts for like him. So if he lowers his own ult gauge with his commandment, it counts. I don't think if your allies do, I don't think that does count. But I do know that the single type, once again, removes ult gauge, but 30% basic stat boost can be really handy. Once again, with his kit, it's not the best, because once again, he only gets the 100% crit chance for 2 turns. You can get the insane crit damage boost whenever you move a skill. I'm pretty sure it's only his skill, so you will lose ult gauge. Crit damage is increased by 30% when removed from the hero's ultimate move gauge. So once again, you can use your commandment to give yourself another 90% crit damage, which if you're running with attack crit, also be an extra. Yeah, you're looking at a very good amount of crit damage, close to nearly 400%. 90% from the passive, 20% from crit damage set bonus. So very good. Just generally, Zell's commandment is one of the ones where it's actually really useful, especially for PvE as well. Certain bosses, final bosses, you would use it. Galleon. Yeah, unfortunately it works for both. It works for PvE and PvP, it just only doesn't work in Deathmatch, and if you use a rank up skill. So PvE-wise, you can't run in with Gotha, even though I don't know why you would, but you can't run in with Gotha because, of course, they're disabled. But yeah, Gallon's commandment isn't really too useful. It's super specific. Rank up and rank down is not something you see very often, especially on newer characters. Newer characters normally have an ult gauge depletion as a support skill, or some sort of cleanse buff, insane damage, or like a support debuff play sort of thing. But yeah, unfortunately, it's a really horrendous commandment to have. Once again, it can be cleansed because it's just a normal petrify debuff, and it does actually work really well with Gallon's like general kit, but unfortunately Gallon's kit relies so heavy on his commandment, or his LR kit, literally so heavy on that commandment, if there's no Gothra on the field, let's just say currently Demon meta, Goddess meta, even humans, there's no Sins, so his commandment's completely useless because the only real meta rank up, rank down character is UR-based Gothra. But generally it works everywhere, so do be careful. It will screw you over. If for some reason you're using them, I don't know, to farm affection or something along the lines of that, it will screw you over. Unless, of course, he gets like a relic, which makes his team immune to it. Here we go. Festival Esterosa. So Festival Esterosa, once again, only works in PvP, which is completely fine. That's it, really. It just works in PvP. It removes a buff every time that a skill is played, and say you have a buff on that character. This Esterosa's kit really heavily relies on the fact that this commandment is active, so you want to have him as far left as you possibly can. Demon King, if Demon King's on the field, doesn't matter where the placement is on the team, enemy team, your team, commandments are immediately shut down. And that's something that I'll talk about towards the end, about how if you have Demon King on the team, there's no point. But the only good thing about Demon King is when you kill him, all commandments go back to being in play again. They're just locked until Demon King comes, till Demon King dies. But yeah, if only you wait 2 turns and it still works anyway, which is pretty good. And it's a buff, so it can be removed by passives, Rimuru, so on and so forth. This Soldas, I don't know why anyone would actually use this Soldas up front, because its commandment's horrendous. 10% crit chance and 10% crit damage lower when you crit. It works everywhere but deathmatch. Stacks up to 3 times. 30% crit chance lower and 30% crit damage lower. You think, oh, it's not bad, right? You can just cleanse it off. No, it's one of the few commandments, if not the only commandment, that the effect is grey, meaning you can't remove the debuff, and after you've got it, it is permanent. As you can see here, it doesn't say lasts for 1 turn, lasts for 3 turns, lasts for 5 turns. It lasts permanently until the end of whatever content you're doing, Demonic Beast, PvE, PvP, whatever. And yeah, on to the next one now. Next commandment will be Esterosa. So, of course, there are 2 Esterosas, they both have 2 different commandments. This one's the original Esterosa, when on release it was like, he was absolutely terrifying, unless you got like Green Esterosa or Green Escanor ult. But yeah, decrease attack rate stats by 20% for 3 turns upon inflicting damage with a skill. This works everywhere but deathmatch. So, final boss, night boss, demonic beast, you will still get screwed over. And it's just when you play a skill. It doesn't matter if it's a healing skill or a debuff removal or literally any skill, and you'll get absolutely screwed because for some reason, it's when you play any skill and it's 20% attack related stats. It is just your normal red debuff, so it can be removed. And you, once again, Estero has debuff immunity. It can also proc with counters as well. So if you were to play a counter and you were to cleanse yourself and then the counter was to attack, you would still get the effect of the counter. The debuff from it. But yeah, it's an okay commandment. It works well with his kit, which gives him debuff immunity when he plays a stance, which lasts for 2 turns. I think his stance is already 1 turn unless he is, gold card. But generally, it's a decent. It was a decent command for back in the day. Would you use it now? Probably not. Maybe if Liz Melly could run a commandment, you might be able to get away with it, but they can't. So unfortunately, it's not actually that good. Aries. So Aries is PvP only and decreased the damage of range skills by 35%, which is okay. Problem is, because it's for both teams, you're not really going to find any new characters that have only got close range skills. Like, Milim has a range, pretty sure Milim's AoE is a range skill. Liz Melly, I'm pretty sure I've only got range skills. Escanor's got 1 range, 1 close, and because it's decreased the damage, it will affect, like, Escanor or characters like Mael, because it's not a lower. It's not like a stat lower, it's just a straight up damage lower. But generally, it's not it's not a bad commandment. And I definitely think if Aries got an LR, she might be able to claw her way back into some sort of meta, because she's actually not too bad. Her her relic's decent for blue Aries, which basically not many people own. Well, I don't own her because she's a character from 2021, and she's a Valentine's Day character, which I'm not allowed to pull, and they're barely ever out. Okay, who we got next? Droll. Droll's commandment's okay. It's not the worst. It works only in PvP, which is, once again, because he's got absolutely horrendous CC, sort of the green and red Esterosa we saw. The original Esterosa, and basically all the original characters haven't got LRs or newer variants in recent times. It's okay. Are you really going to be using it? Maybe in Chaos mode PvP. Apart from that, He's not too good. 30% resistance. Once again, if you're versing a power strike enemy and they were to hit you a ton of times, they're doing a lot more damage, and that's scary. But I don't think there's really any power strike in the meta at the moment, so it's not that scary. It's not that scary really. But it works well with his kit. Gives himself buffs. Gives his team damage reduction per buff on himself. So it works quite well with his kit. It works better than green. Green, once again, is like fully based on like stopping you from ulting. This one's fully based on damage reduction and just general allies buffing. So he's a good character, but generally the commandment isn't that good. Monspeed. Monspeed's commandment prevents ultimate move gauge from filling through the skill use in PvP. So this mixed with Green Dairy's passive, I think it's Green Dairy's passive, can make it so you can't get. The only way you can actually get skills is by combining cards, and you only get one ult gauge from combining cards. But yeah, it's useless. You're not really going to be using it. If most people on LR, once again, he might be quite good, but it does screw you over quite a bit. His relic is also really good. Maybe in chaos mode. Sorry, Hearing. Maybe in Hearing. If you had enough CC to go first with this Monspeed, or with red or green Monspeed, it may actually not be too bad. Especially if you're versing like, I don't know, they get like 1 million mergers, I guess, sort of thing, and they get like, because even if you get a gold merger, you're only still getting like 3 ult gauge, 3 ult gauge max, which isn't too bad, and they can't get any more unless, of course, they merge more, and the AIs don't really normally merge in like a Arena because the AI just doesn't really know what merging is. With Molascula, this is the original Molascula. I think this is the actual last commandment. Let me check. I have some notes that I wrote down. We've done both cells, we've done both Esterosas, we've done Galleon, done Glock. Yeah, this is the last commandment. This one isn't too bad. Once again, only works in PvP, and a lot of these commandments do only work in PvP, but some of them do also work in PvE as well, which can screw you over. But Molascula's one, it's okay. At the end of every turn, whoever doesn't play a skill gets 2 ignites. It lasts for 5 turns. 5 turns is a lot, by the way, especially when like if you match that commandment up with this green Molascula, which gives you ignite immunity. This only works for your enemies, which is really good. But if you're running like blue or red Molascula, you can still also have the effect. But you can also use that effect, you know, you can use it to your advantage with characters like Green Giant Diane, the original one. For every debuff she has on her, she gets 12% defense-related stats, which is absurd. Sorry, her allies get 12% defense-related stats, and it can keep stacking. So characters like Nolfme or Boldir or anyone who's defense based can really make use of it, and it can actually be really broken. In chaos mode I was wiping teams with that combo. Relic as well. The relic only works with red Molascula, but the bottom bit works with the command, which is really nice. About 15% basic stat boost when the enemies have debuffs on or ignites on them, which you can actually pair up with Monspeed and immediately get the maxed out Molascula passive, because Molascula has the effect of Monspeed's relic has the effect of applying ignites, and that's really it. When it comes to the Archangels, there's the commandments work everywhere for the Archangels. Basically, there's only a few that have any restrictions. Margaret has no restrictions. Mael has no restrictions because it's just raw damage, because that's just how it is. Once again, it's no restrictions again. No restrictions. It's only Green Sorrel, I think, is one that's sort of got restrictions. Blue Tommy works everywhere. Don't want to click on him. Ludo, I know this Ludo does. This Ludo doesn't work in Deathmatch, but it doesn't matter, because you're probably not going to be using this Ludo anyway, because all this Ludo does is make you evade, petrify, freeze, or stun for 2 turns, which realistically you don't really want that on a tank, and when you've got Red Tarmila as a better pick, and at the moment characters like LR King are not meta. When LR King is meta, I used to put this on my LR Diane, because I'd always be able to out-CC the Glock teams anyway, or the LR King teams, so that they couldn't petrify and immediately kill Milim turn 1, and that was actually really good. Same commandment. This one works everywhere, apart from Deathmatch, but it doesn't really matter, because Deathmatch it's not that hard. Okay, this is the only one that I think is super underwhelming. So of course this is Green Soriel, the second form of Soriel, and there's also of course now the new red form in this exact same one, and the debuff bit, it's 5 times, it lasts for 2 turns, it's whenever you play a skill. The counter also does count towards that. For example, if you're hit and you counter back, both the new red and green Soriel both have it, it applies to debuffs, which is quite handy. Also, it does stack another stack of Margaret's passive, which is also kind of handy as well. But because it's a red debuff, it's really not that good. Would you get a 15% crit chance lower and a 40% crit damage lower? The crit damage lower is insane, right? But the CC is horrendous. You wouldn't run it. Like, green Soriel can't tank. Red Soriel, I don't think, can tank. The crit defense is quite good. I will say crit defense is really good. But yeah, even the red Soriel is not going to be able to make use of the commandment. I don't think you'd be running them up front. But that's it when it comes to not commandments. The graces, unities and bonds, or sorry, unities and whatever, work everywhere. The only problem that there is with, I think, a unity is the ultimate ones, only because he, where is he? His is technically a grace, so once again, you can't run like Mael, or you can't run like a grace character with a grace character, but you can run a commandment character with a grace. You can run a bond character with a grace. You can run a bond with a grace. So, for example, you can run Roxy's bond or unity buff, whatever you want to call it, with this Escanaut, even though he's already got a grace. And this grace also isn't based on ult level, which is kind of nice to see, where bonds are normally based on ult level. But bonds work everywhere, which is kind of cool. Yeah, that's it. Thought I'd just quickly make a video going over what does and doesn't work in different pieces of content. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.